Welcome to the Roland Cut Studio. When you open Roland Cut Studio, you'll notice that you do have a page with a grid as well as two toolbars that surround the workspace. The top toolbar is our standard toolbar, and I'm just going to go ahead and pull that down into my design workspace. And here you do have the ability to open a new design, open an existing design, or save a design. The next icon is importing. This has to do with importing your image, such as a JPEG, bitmap, Illustrator, EPS file, or a Roland file, an STX file. Cutting will send the design to the cutter. You can also print directly onto a printer. You can undo and redo, and those are steps that you do take in the system. Cut, copy, and paste. Fit, which will actually fit the image to the screen, or fit the design to the screen, or it will fit what you have selected to the screen. Move will move the object to the origin point. Here's where you can insert a symbol or open the window for the symbols. And the last one is the properties. Properties allows you to go into the object properties and resize and do other things such as that. I'll go ahead and bring that back up here. Our object toolbar, which is on the left hand side here, and I'll go ahead and pull that out. You can see these are where we can choose different tools. We have our selection tool, our edit tool for editing nodes. We have our zooming in and out tool, inserting text, rectangle, circle or ellipse, polygon, star, polyline, or curve. To bring that back over, I'm just going to left click, hold, and drag and bring that back over and dock that. Since these toolbars are movable and they can float anywhere on my screen, and all I'm doing is just left clicking, holding, and dragging. As I push the toolbar over on the left hand side here, I can make that horizontal or I can make that vertical. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and bring this back to our default settings here. We also have a symbol in the upper left hand corner of our design workspace. This symbol is a picture of a cutter as well as the material feeding through the cutter and a little point here that represents the origin point. This origin point is the starting point of the knife or the pen, and this is going to show us where we start as far as our cutting goes. So this is going to be the knife or the pen starting point. In order to set up the workspace to reflect the material that you're cutting on, or how wide the cutter will actually cut on the material, we need to go to the cutting setup. So up here we'll go to File, I left click on File, I'll scroll down and left click on Cutting Setup. When I select that, the Cutting Setup dialog box appears. In here I have the Roland GX300 selected. I will then choose the Properties button and left click on the Properties button. And when I do that, here is where I can actually set up the cutting area. If my cutter is hooked up to my computer, I can get that from the machine, or I can type that in manually. I can use millimeters or inches, and most times the cutter will use millimeters. In order to change that, all I have to do is go ahead and swipe over that number, set up the cutting area or the cutting width, and then press OK. Once I press OK there, I need to press OK one more time, and now my cutting setup is a little bit different. We really didn't see much of a difference on screen, but I did notice that my scroll bars is a lot bigger and there's a lot less room to scroll through. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose the zoom in and out tool. I will left click on that to select and then right click to zoom out. I left click to zoom in. I will go back to File and then Cutting Setup. Here, again, we'll go to the Properties button. I'll change that to 700 and then press OK. Once I press OK there, I'll press OK again, and you can see now that it's much bigger. I'll go ahead and right click. I still am on that zoom in and out tool, so I'm zoomed out. We'll go back to the cutting setup, so File and Cutting Setup, and once I go to the cutting setup, I'll go down to Properties, and here we'll change it back to the 350 millimeters and then press OK. We'll press OK again, and you can see that now I have a narrower material that I can work on. So this will actually show you your cutting area. You also have different preferences within the Cut Studio itself. If we go up to File and then scroll down to Preferences and left click, you can see here we can change the preferences. We have a General tab, a Colors tab, a Grid tab, and a Curve tab. In each one of these different tabs, you'll see different preferences that you can change, such as if you want to work in millimeters or inches, the image darkness, and that would be of the image that you actually import, the default for the font, the colors for the background, for things that you select, so on and so forth, the grid, what interval you would like the grid to have as far as your width and your height, and if you want a line grid or a point grid. And you also have the preferences for the curve, for the polyline curve, the tolerance, and the angle tolerance. So we'll go ahead and press OK. So anytime you want to change those preferences, you would go up to File and then Preferences. Now, I am currently selected on the Zoom In and Out tool. To get out of that tool, I'll just go to my Object Toolbar and left click on the Select icon. So I left click on that, and you can see now my cursor is back to a cursor. To give you an idea of just how a cut file will look, it looks like vector lines. We'll go ahead and open an existing Cut Studio file. So I'll just go ahead and left click on the Open button. And here I can look in my desktop, or I can look into any one of my other folders. I'll just choose this file right here, left click on it, and then press Open. When I press Open here, you can see I do have my design showing. What I see here, these black lines will show me where the knife will fall or cut that material. In order to send the design to the cutter, I can simply hit the cutting icon. When I left click on that, it allows me to choose what cutter I'd like to send it to if I have different cutters. Right now I do have the Roland GX300 selected. So once I press OK, it will send it to my cutter. Then the cutter will go according to these lines. The last cut we just sent over cut the whole design that I can see here on my design workspace. If I'd like to cut just selected pieces, what I can do is select those pieces, and that's just by left clicking on the piece. And if I'd like to select more, I can hold the Shift key and select which pieces I want to cut. I can then go to the cutting button at the top here, left click on cutting, and here under my print range, instead of all, I will choose selection. When I choose selection and then press OK, it will actually just cut what I have selected, which is the F, the N, and the O. Now to deselect these areas, I'm just going to left click off to the side here. So I'm just going to show you two more things, and since I'm not selected on this area and I click the Fit button, it will fit the whole design into screen. If I select one of them and then click the Fit button at the top here, it will fit what I have selected. Again, if I want to zoom out and fit just the whole thing, I can left click off to the side and click Fit. Now if I want to move the whole design to the origin point too, I can select the Move button, move to origin, and move the whole thing. And that's because I had nothing selected. Let's go ahead and undo that. I left click undo. Now if I want to select this one and just move this piece to the origin with that left click selected, I can then select Move to Origin and it will move just that piece. Let's go ahead and hit Undo again. So if I have nothing selected, left click off to the side, you can see nothing is selected, and then hit Move. It will move the whole thing as close as it can to the origin point. I left click off to the side to deselect. Thanks for watching the introduction to the Roland Cut Studio, and I hope you enjoy our other tutorials. Thank you.